Hey there, good people. Stuart Bell here from Outdare, business coach and creator of the Practice Evolutions program, and now the Practice Success community, which I'm absolutely loving at the moment. Hey, if you caught a episode of the Finnovator that I recorded or shared recently called Metrics That Matter, you'll know a little bit about why I feel that having the right metrics that you can easily collect and are going to give you real insight into how you're doing and how to improve things is a bit of a superpower, particularly when it comes to what I do. Today, I want to shine a light on marketing because when I'm creating business plans, often I tend to separate out the marketing metrics and the business growth or profitability or team performance metrics. And there's a good reason for it. And the reason is that often the type of metrics that you need to track in order to really understand your marketing require a different level of focus and a different level of understanding. And that's why I wanted to share this recording called Marketing Metrics. Now, obviously, the most useful place to use marketing metrics tends to be in digital marketing. And I think out of everything that's happened in the last 30 years around the web, the ability to analyze the quality of your marketing and the results you're getting and ultimately make a decision on whether or not you're making money or enough money out of it, I think has been one of the most powerful things. I think that's why we've seen marketing become a natural extension of so much of what goes on the web. I can't remember who it was who made that famous statement that 50% of my marketing works and 50% of my marketing doesn't. I just don't know which is which. This is the superpower of digital marketing. It gives you the ability to understand not just what works, but understand how much to spend on it, where to spend it, even looking at the quality of leads. But again, there are various different types of marketing metrics, varying from the marketing metrics you use at the very top of your funnel when you're measuring the quality of absolute strangers who are becoming aware of you, to the marketing metrics you use when you're looking at the list of prospects or potential clients that you're marketing to, hoping to tip them over. Very different metrics, and understanding the difference between the two and when to use them can often be the difference between understanding that you are actually doing quite well or alternatively cutting the spend that's just never going to result in the right outcomes. But even then, it's actually looking at the difference between marketing metrics which define the outcome and marketing metrics that help you understand the activity you should be prioritizing. Because it's a funny thing, but often the number one thing that businesses put to one side or fail to do, particularly advice firms, but accountants and mortgage brokers aren't immune to this either. When the going gets tough, the number one thing that gets pushed on that side is marketing. And sometimes when you have insight into the metrics and you can understand the chain of events that see somebody see your website or see you on social media or watch one of your videos on YouTube and then suddenly become into your world, join your list and then tip over to become a client, you realize why financial services firms who nail this are happy to spend $500 or $600 a day to generate leads, because they know at the end of it, they can generate a client that pays them $6,000 to $8,000, maybe even $10,000 in year one, and will keep paying a good ongoing fee year on year. In other words, the ROI of getting marketing right is huge, which is why the bidding price is so high. So let's dive in. I hope you get a lot out of it. As always, if you do, please feel free. If you're a member of this success community at success.outdare.com.au, drop me a message via the direct messaging. Tell me what you got out of it. Tell me where you're at and share some insight that I can share on the next podcast. If you're not a member of the success community, please head over there. And as always, if you love this podcast, take a moment just to leave a review. Let's jump into marketing metrics. Let me sort of put it on the table about sort of marketing metrics and what this is about and what it isn't. I have a really strong belief that any marketing metrics or any marketing for that matter, to be honest, should always have a really strong correlation in some way, shape, or form to practice profitability. And I spent 10 years in corporate. And while I was in corporate, I worked with some people who were very good marketing people. They could produce a really strong corporate, messaging and put together great communications. They were really good at making sure they're involved in branding and all that sort of stuff. But if you actually sat them down and asked them this simple question, invariably the answer was always no. And the question was, how many leads? Have you ever generated a lead that you could track back and go, that lead was as a result of that specific marketing activity? And in most cases, the answer for most of the people was no. And that's not to say they weren't good at their job. It's just when it comes to corporate marketing, and what we're talking about here, which is small business marketing, they're completely different pieces. And I'd argue that most corporate marketing is mostly brand and communications. For me, when you're in a small business and you're going to invest time and money and effort into marketing, it has to be clear that it's going to get a result at the end of it. And that's why these metrics are really, really key. Similarly, as Jen well knows, over the course of my time doing what I do, I've engaged many, many marketing people.
And I can say there's a significant portion of those, even despite, knowing what I know now, which I haven't always known, who, when we got down to it, might have been really good at putting out social media posts that look good, or might have been good at putting things together or making things look nice, or, focused on getting likes or all this sort of stuff. But when it comes to actually tracking, is the stuff that you're doing in the marketing space changing my business for the positive? They weren't able to get there. And as a result, in many cases, we've just kind of ended the engagement because they didn't get where I was coming from about the reason we were doing marketing. And I know a couple of you might have had a similar sort of experience of talking to people about marketing. And when you don't have that link between, if we do this, there's profitability, it can make it really hard for others to see the value. Does that make sense? To that end, being able to actually control the quality and the volume and the frequency of what's coming through is totally one of the drivers of sustainable growth. I think it was Tristan Bond, who's another coach who works in the chiropractic space. And he made a point. He said, one of the first things that you kind of want to master as a business owner, as a practice owner, as an advisor, as a broker, whatever it is you do, is you want to be able to take control of your ability to generate opportunities. Because if you control that ability to generate opportunities, by definition, you have control over growth. If you don't, you never quite know whether you're one of those boats that's kind of rising with the tide, It's funny, some of the coaches out there, and there's a lot of coaches who spend a lot of time marketing. And I kind of look at it and go, there's some who are really good at marketing, not so good at the coaching, right? But when you look at people like Brendan Bouchard, who spends $80,000 a month on social media marketing, your first question is how can you sustain that? And it's not until you look under the bonnet of some of these people, the Gary V's, the big hitters, the Amy Porterfields, you realize they spend that money because they've worked out that if they spend X amount on this, and these are the activities they do, and they target the right market and they track it, they generate 5 or 10 or 50, however many multiple off the back of it. And that's why they do it. They do it because they've worked out how to make this work for them. And once they've worked out how to make it work for them, because they have the metrics and they go, you know what, that worked, this didn't work, let's put more money, they can scale it up. So I guess what today is about is it's about establishing those kind of metrics so that along the way, you can have a look at what you're doing and be able to identify that's working. Let's do more of that. Let's invest more time. That's not working, or we can tweak it, or that's not working because of that issue. Because if we do that, you find ways of generating growth, you take control of it, and it makes that particular part of the journey a lot easier, if that makes sense. So let me just outline really quickly what this is about at a high level. Having targets that form part of your plan is one thing, but as many of you know, when I've been through the planning process with you, when we get that a bit where we're talking about client targets or marketing, I always say, let's park that and let's create a separate set of metrics for that. Because I think when you have your marketing metrics and the detail in your one-page plan, it blows the whole thing out. And it's not necessarily what you need in a one-page business plan, but you do need it. And I think, but also being able to understand what you're able to track. Now, what could I track across the 3 main sources of leads we're going to talk about, and really drilling into the ones that are most important to you? That's what's going to enable you to make better informed decisions. And when you make better decisions as you're implementing instead of after the fact, you're not learning by doing, you're learning as you're doing it. And it's much more efficient because you can be more proactive and you can be more nimble. So for me, the outcome off the back of it is the things that this is going to help you do if you implement it is you're going to understand better your niche market. We all have this sense of what our niche market want or what they do. And going through the process of building a client avatar is a really good way of doing it. But the next level is proving or disproving it. You're going to get an understanding of why clients are coming to you, which I think is so important. Like, you can make assumptions that they're coming to you because of your value prop, but it might be a very small part of your value prop. We can work out how they're finding you. We can work out the channels that are working best for you and the ones that aren't. If you've already got marketing in place, this is a really good way of finding out where potentially your marketing's not wrong. It's just certain things are missing or broken. We can talk about how to optimize your website. It's a big part of it. We can talk about what topics work best. And ultimately, if we can get to a place where you know that by doing this activity this often or in this quantity, you're going to generate this amount of opportunities in this time frame. And I'm going to walk you through the worksheet, which should be in the chat box, where I'm going to work backwards, where you can work out, I want this many leads, I've got to do this kind of work. And if I need, if I need to change the style or the frequency of my marketing in order to get the results, then I can do that too. So the success factors to get there is we need to run through and understand those three core sources. And I think for some of you, this is going to be a very quick recap. We're going to understand how to measure success in each of those three lead funnels. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between metrics that are focused on the results and metrics that are focused on activity, and find out which are the best ones to prioritize at a point in time. We're going to talk about, we're going to run through digital metrics, because I think digital metrics are the ones that often, I wouldn't say are least understood, but sometimes there's gaps in people's knowledge. And we're going to understand we're going to talk briefly about some of the tools that are available. And ultimately, at the end of it, I'm going to ask you to make a decision about what you need to implement your metrics, whether that's a tool or tools, certain habits to adopt for you personally or as a team, and any system, so it just becomes part of what you do. Cool. So I want to get your thoughts. What is the main way when you look at your marketing today, whether it's referral marketing, whether it's your digital marketing, whether it's, referrals, what's the main way that you would like to optimize? Again, pop it in the chat box. No problem, Philip. What is the main way that you would like to improve or make your marketing easier, or just get it better in some way? Simon, you mentioned streamlined. Cool. Simon wants to be streamlined. So I'm guessing that's production or publishing or a whole bunch of everything else. Streamline usually means it takes less time or you can do more of it. But yeah, streamlining, I'd probably dive a bit deeper on that one and say, what in terms of streamlining, is it because you want to do more of it, or you want to spend less time on it, or a bit of both? Cool. Yeah, fair enough. Simon E, better understand digital flows. You know what? I'm doing this session. I'm also doing a session in a few weeks' time, which is called the lead funnels, where I'll dive a lot deeper into the three funnels that we're going to talk about today. So yeah, all line consistency and referral marketing. Oh, good one, Simon. Yeah. And again, we're going to cover off on referrals in the next few weeks. So we're going to dive into it. I'm going to give you at least 3 ways of raising conversations. But again, we're going to talk about at a high level what it means along the way today. Lovely, guys and girls. Okay, key principles. Let me run through 3 things we're going to talk about before we get stuck into it. The key concepts I want to talk about are, firstly, I want to talk about these 3 funnels, the 3 main ways that advice businesses generate leads. I then want to talk about the difference between measuring your activity versus result, which I think is really key. We're going to talk about picking metrics that are relevant. And finally, we're going to talk and cover off a little bit about sort of the question of tracking. So let's just jump into the first one. If you've not heard of a lead funnel, which I think most of you would have, it's this idea that out there in the world are a bunch of people. There's probably a bunch of non-people out there, but generally they don't buy financial advice, so let's not worry about those guys, or dogs or cats or whatever they're called. And the goal is to kind of attract them into your business. But as you're doing it, generally they're going to either self-select out because your marketing is so good and so communicates who you work with and who you don't work with so well that they can go, oh, you know what? That's not what I need. That's not what I'm looking for. Alternatively, it only targets certain people. But as you go, it sort of whittles it down to eventually those people who best suit your business and are most likely to come aboard. And then bang, you brought on board the client. I think it was, I can't remember who said it, but it was a great saying, which was the purpose of good marketing is to make selling absolutely irrelevant or unnecessary. And I tend to agree with that massively. When I think about advice firms, and this is typically true, there's only really 3 methods that most advice firms use to generate most of their incoming sort of leads or opportunities. And I'm leaving out things like radio or TV or magazine advertising, because that just generally doesn't seem to be the methodology. It's expensive. It's not a tide. And generally it falls into 3 areas. The first funnel is referrals. And I talk about referrals as being non-commercial advocates, usually clients, sometimes not clients. But these are people who are referring others through to you, primarily because they're advocates for what you do. They like what you do. And importantly, they're speaking to people who they think you can help, and they have a social relationship with those people. The second one is digital. And this is, I just put anything online here. It could be paid advertising. It could be social media marketing. It's email marketing. It could be vlogging. It could be blogging. It's all of those sort of things. But it's anything where someone is finding your presence online, and as a result of what you've done and built, it's drawing them down that funnel. And the final is partnerships, where it is like a referral, but instead of being a non-commercial relationship, it tends to be a formal relationship where there's a value share thing. Sometimes it'll be involve financial benefits. Sometimes it's got nothing to do with financial. And ultimately, they're engaging their clients to represent what you do, or you're marketing with them. And again, as a result of that, they're drawing them closer to the bottom of your funnel, which is ultimately a sales process where someone goes from being someone who's referred to you, they go to being an inquiry. In other words, they're reaching out. You have a first contact call with them. You then get them in a first appointment, and ultimately they convert to being a client. Does that make sense? Cool. So whatever we're talking about here, those for me are the only 3 funnels that actually really matter. And everything you do fits into those funnels. Now, there's a key thing we'll cover a little bit this week, but I'll cover a little bit more in the next training, which is about the order in which things happen. But essentially, whenever I think about marketing, it's about one of those 3 things. It's either you're going to generate leads from referrals, you're going to generate leads from a digital marketing strategy, or you're going to generate leads from partnerships with businesses who you are complementary with. In other words, you share similar clients or similar values, and you can help each other. So let's do a bit of a straw poll, because I always love asking this question. If you think about, and you can put this in the chat box. If you think back to last year, what percentage of the new client opportunities, just new clients, not existing clients, came as a result of referrals from a business that you have a partnership with? Andrew says 30%. Cool. 0% says Simon. It's interesting, Simon, but you've got internal referrals going on. So in many ways, I mean, I'd probably ask that question. Yeah, I'd ask that question about you because you're internally. I mean, the thing is, when you've got a multidisciplinary business and you go out and approach another business, they'll go, yeah, they've got if they're a broker, they'll go, but you've got broking internally. Or if they're an accountant, you've got accounting internally. So yeah, very small. So, okay, cool. So Andrew's, yours is about, actually the range for this can vary from about 10 to 50. Actually, it goes from 0 to 50. Some businesses are really proactive in this space. Andrew, you're getting about the range of someone who's using partnerships really well. Simon, I can understand why you wouldn't be getting this, but obviously the other Simon Enger, you're not getting many at all, but you've just started down this route. Okay, cool. So that's not atypical. Partnerships tend to be something that some businesses do and some don't. Next question for you. What percentage of your leads in 2022 came from digital sources? And digital sources, 0. Cool. Typically, they booked an appointment through the website, or the inquiry came through the website. They may have been referred from elsewhere, but 60%. Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, I know you've had some real success with this. 10% from Simon. Again, this is one of those areas that it really does depend on how active a business is, but it's grown. Like when I was doing workshops maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I asked this question, you'd be maybe 1 or 2 in 10 businesses were generating any sort of volume, but now it's getting higher and higher. And the final piece in here, I want to ask, what percentage of your leads in 2022 came from client referrals or advocate referrals? Very high, December. So yours, well, given the other ones, it'd be close to 100%, correct? Yeah, 70%, Simon B. And I guess what's left there, Andrew, it would be around about a very small number. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I suspect that this is what used to happen with the yellow pages. People would say, oh, they found us in the yellow pages. Then you'd quiz them more and they said, oh, such and such told me to give you a call. So I looked it up in the yellow pages. So that might happen with digital as well. So that might, yeah, but I'd say it's probably 20% that I'm totally aware of.
And this is a really, really good point. I'm glad you raised it, because often when you talk to people about the digital and the referral and the partnership, sometimes people think about them as being in isolation, but often what happens is people will come to you because they've been referred through by a partner and they've gone and they've engaged with you digitally. And as a result, that's the thing that's tipped them to make the decision to engage. Like, I think more so than ever before, if you don't have a web presence, if your website sucks, people are going to look at it as a bit of a red flag. So I absolutely can see why 60% of your leads would come through digital. And I could agree why a large portion would also be referrals. And I think there's a crossover there, Andrew, which I think you know about, right? And I think the thing with digital, the one thing that everybody says when they say they come through digital is the Google stars. So they always, so even though a couple of them are from people that I know, and I've also left a 1-star rating on there, just
that fella had a chip, and I just figured that no one's perfect, right? So
Absolutely.
4.5 stars seems okay, and they can read someone that was sooking about stuff, so that's
Okay.
fine.
As you guys know, I've got I bought the van business, and I've got like 480 positives, and there's 20 or 30 negatives. And the thing is, as Andrew said, like if you're doing the Google review thing, everyone freaks out. What if I get bad feedback? That's your opportunity to come in, and because you get the last word and go, sorry, you had a bad experience. This was my recollection of what happened, but I hope it works out better. Yeah, spot on. And if you don't not doing Google reviews, or you're not collecting testimonials and you want to talk about that, please let me know, because we've got the system for doing it, and it's a key element of it. I don't use Google reviews that much because I don't want walk-ins. I've had a few, but having them on the website is really key. Cool. Okay, that's incredibly useful. So just so I'm clear, which funnel are you most focused on at the moment? Is it building the referrals? Is it building the digital stuff? Is it building the partnership stuff? Or is it kind of a combination of all three? Yeah. Okay. Andrew's digital. Perfect. This will help for me to sort of planning content as well. Kind of a combination for Simon. Yep. Although I think you're mostly referral and digital, Simon. Cool. I think we've captured everybody. Okay. So that's helpful. All right. Let's crack on. I want to talk a little bit about activity result. I use this image really, really deliberately. When I joined Hillross back in the day, one of the things I tended to notice when I first came in as sort of practice development manager, I was building coaching systems so that the on the road staff could go out and coach better. I noticed that there was this tendency for these practice development managers to go out and do planning with their businesses, and they'd crunch the numbers and they'd come up with all these targets this was going to do. And then when we looked back at the numbers a little bit later, I noticed that the vast majority of businesses didn't necessarily achieve their targets. So they'd set the target of, we're going to put on board this many clients, or we're going to have this much growth, or whatever, particularly around marketing, and it just never happened. And I think the number one reason it happened is because the way that the planning was occurring was because they were going in and they were investing so much time in defining the result, and there was no guidelines around how they were going to actually go about it. And I think this is really, really important, because if you're just sitting there and going, I'm going to bring on board this many clients, and you're breaking it down, even if you're breaking down this many for referrals and this many from digital and this many, there's no real guidance as to what you need to do this week, next week, each month that's actually going to generate. So it's literally the example of, you think about archery, there's two parts to it. There's the target at the end, and there's also the person pulling the bowstring and shooting the arrow. The result is the bullseye, but the activity is actually aiming, shooting, and letting go. And if you don't do the activity and you do it in a certain way, and you measure the competency and the capability and all the rest of it, you're never going to get the result. And that's similarly the case here. Now, there's a whole bunch of different ways to sort of cut this when it comes to analyzing the stages people go through. There's AIDA, there's a whole bunch of marketing talk. But for me, it's really about, and this is how your metrics sort of plug in. At the top, there's what you're doing, the activity. And at the bottom, there's the result. So for me, there's got to be metrics around output. What did you actually do? When I've worked with, particularly I've been brought in to work with younger advisors or less experienced advisors, and we set targets and they don't get achieved. The thing I don't do is sit there and go, okay, well, let's go again. I want to dive in and understand, well, hold on a moment. If you're not getting the result, if you're not getting the outcome, are you actually doing the work? The whole thing about, if you set yourself a target, getting fit or losing weight or whatever it might be, but you don't actually go to the gym, you don't do enough of it, you're not going to get the result. It's never going to happen, right? So the first one is to look at, what metrics have you got that are measuring the output? Let's say you are doing a lot of the work and you're publishing the content, or you're whatever it might be, and I'll run you through the metrics. The next stage is all about awareness. In other words, who did we reach? If you're putting content out, but nobody's seeing it, or nobody's hearing about it, or you're working with a strategic partner and they're not talking about their clients to you, and they're not putting marketing out, they're just forgetting to do it. Or you've got these clients who love what you do, but for some reason, whenever they have a conversation with people about money, they just forget that you help them. Then the issue is awareness. If the next stage you've got metrics around awareness, but it's still not happening, I would look at engagement. It's like, okay, so if people are aware of you, or the partners putting your stuff out, or people are clicking on your social media, or they're reading your blogs, but they're not doing anything as a next step, then there's an area we can look at there. In other words, what do they do next? Finally, there's the growth stage, which is if they're engaging, are they doing certain things that are going to move them closer to engaging? And then finally, there's a metric or a piece where you analyze whether or not it is working. You know, if it's there that people are coming from your social media and they're engaging with your stuff, and then there's a downloadable thing that they're clicking on, but it's not actually turning into inquiries or it's not turning into list growth, then again, understanding what the metrics are to deal with that is really, really key. Is everyone clear on that? The difference between measuring your activity and measuring the result, and why a combination? Yeah, cool. The fourth one I want to talk about before we dive into, actually, I've got two more, is kind of, no, we're going to leave that one alone. Okay. It's just about making sure you have got relevant metrics. Now, I've created a bit of a glossary, and I'm happy to run through it in detail because I know I speak to some people and we were talking about bounce rates and unique visitors and page views and all sorts of other metrics, and everybody's got different words for it. And so I think getting on the same page about what it is, what it measures, what stage it belongs at, and specifically why you want to track it is really, really key. But I wanted to say, if I was just going to simplify the whole thing down, and I was just going to say, here's your 3 funnels. These are the things to measure that will define success. This is what I do. With the referral funnel, at the top, I would measure outreach. And what that means is I would measure how many clients that you are having a regular referral conversation with in order to make them aware that you actually want referrals. Does that make sense? I'd actually might go a little bit further, and actually I'd even analyze who you're reaching out to, because we know that not all clients will refer. If I wanted to understand engagement, I'd want to dive in and understand a bit more about how many recommendations were made. So circle back on clients on a regular basis if it's not happening, and say, well, are they speaking to any clients, any of their friends about money? And as a result, is there a recommendation coming through? And at the end, the ROI is whether or not people are approaching you. So again, there's different metrics for this, but at a high level, are you reaching out to referrals? Are they making recommendations? And is that recommendation turning into them engaging with you at some level? In the digital, for me, at the top of the funnel, it's all about content production. Are you producing content regularly enough? Is it good enough? The next stage down is, are people seeing it? Are you getting eyeballs on it? And for me, the ROI when it comes to marketing, and there's, you can measure traffic and all the rest of it. For me, is your list of that you email to growing. And in the partner space, how many conversations are you having with existing strategic partners? Or alternatively, if you don't have any, how often are you reaching out to businesses and just connecting? How many referrals are they, that should be the other way around. How many times are they having conversations with their clients, or you're undertaking marketing activities? And finally, how often are they introducing their clients to you personally? Does that make sense? Cool. Now, would it be useful? I put together a bit of a metrics cheat sheet. Did you want me to spend a little bit of time going through it and sort of outlining each of the metrics on it? Or is this something that you feel you're comfortable, you're just taking it away, going through it, looking at it and understanding sort of the various different metrics along the way? Simon B.
Yeah, I think it would be useful.
Okay. What about Simon B?
Yeah, I know most of them, but if you want to run through it, I'm happy to go through it again.
Yeah. Okay. Andrew, I know you happy to go through it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right, cool. Let me just iPad this one, because it also it'll give a bit of insight as to why, where they kind of fit in as well. So let's run through this. All right. So we're going to go from top of the funnel all the way down to the bottom. So output, which is the stuff you do. And again, I'm going to each of the measurements. So the first one is content published. And that's just simply how often you're sharing content with your audience. And why that's really important is, frankly, particularly if you're doing digital, but also if you're doing partnerships, if you're not creating content often enough, then the strategy is just less likely to work. There's a whole bunch of stuff about whether it's the right content, whether it's written the right way, whether the topics are right. But fundamentally, if you're not putting enough of it out, then that's the place to start. Benchmarking, I'll put benchmarks in as often as I can. For me, I think if you're going down the content marketing route, you've got to do it fortnightly. The monthly thing can work if you're very, very clear about the content and it's really good quality content. But I've always felt that when you've got a list, if you're only communicating with them monthly, it's probably not enough to stay top of mind. Outreach just measures how often you're reaching out to potential new opportunities. And I kind of put under here, particularly referrals or advocates or anybody that you know tends to refer in the past. Ignore the wording on that, why it matters. But ultimately, it's particularly with referrals, the more conversations you're having, the more likely you are to stay top of mind. Partner outreach. If you don't have enough partnerships, then how often you make contact with potential partners is a really important thing to refer, because not everybody you reach out to. LinkedIn's great for doing this, by the way, but the number of people who are going to respond to you on LinkedIn is relatively small. And that's not because it's, it's a personal thing. It's generally because they're not in the mindset where they're ready to partner. And the reason why this matters is if you don't have any partners, then you're not going to generate referrals from it. If you don't have the right partners or they're not marketing the right way, it's also going to be ineffective. Referral discussions is just a measurement of how often you're having conversations with clients who've either referred in the past or may refer. And the reason this is important is if you don't prime the people who have referred or will refer, they can often fail to do so. Again, it's a top of mind thing, as well as making sure you follow up afterwards. Again, the benchmark is, I think, once you sit down and you put together your advocate list, I think you should be aiming to have at least one referral conversation of some way, shape, or form with anybody who has referred or you identified as likely to refer every 6 months. Those are your output metrics. Okay, let's deal with awareness stuff here. Now, there's a lot of social media here stuff. I haven't covered social media in detail, but I'll give you the sort of a bit of the glossary around it. Impressions is just about how many times a post you put out on social media was seen. It's not unique, by the way. In other words, it will measure if somebody has looked at your post 5 times. And this is important because if you are getting really low impressions, it means your social media sort of reach, it may not be big enough. In other words, you need to go and create more connections. For example, LinkedIn's really important in this space. Reach is kind of different. Impressions is how many times the post was seen. Reach is how many unique individual people saw. So again, it measures similar sort of things, but it may, if you got a lot of impressions but smaller reach, it might suggest that it's actually about creating more connections, more so than impressions. Followers and fans. The benefit, this is basically anyone who has made a decision to actively be notified of your posts on whichever platform you're on. And the reason this matters is followers kind of like they're like if an email list is the best because you have control and you can go in the inbox and you control the ability to have the conversation. Followers is probably second because they're going to be actively notified of new content. So they're more likely to see your content over and over again, and they're more likely to engage. Frequency is typically, it's generally about paid advertising, but it's the number of times a user saw one of your ads. And the reason this is key is because you might have heard of retargeting. Retargeting is when someone visits your site and you put a cookie on their computer, and next thing you know, they're searching all over the internet. They're going to this news site, that news site, and there's your advert. Looks like you're spending a fortune in advertising. Actually, all that's doing is your advertising is following them around. But often the reason retargeting works is often it can take multiple sort of hits, multiple reminders for someone to engage. So looking at frequency can sometimes give you a bit of insight into whether or not a campaign is not working or whether or not it's just not working because you haven't given it enough time to kind of percolate. That makes sense. Likes, I think everybody's pretty clear on that. How many people reacted positively. It can give you insight into hot topics. And also can give you insight into who your most engaged audience members might be. There's some platforms will maybe to drill down and go, oh, notice Simon's liked, 10 of my last 12 posts. Maybe I should have a conversation with him about becoming a client. Again, now let's go to the next phase, which is about engagement. Partner activities. This is when you have a partnership. And Simon, we've talked about this, the difference in passive partnerships and active partnerships. Passive partnerships are people who go, yeah, we're partners. If anybody comes across my path, I'll refer them through. Active partners are people who go, let's do some marketing together. Let's sit down and you can train my team, or we can do some case studies. We'll analyze each other's client base, or we'll do some marketing. We'll do a webinar or podcast. I'll put your content out. And I personally prefer the latter. And this is a measure of how many marketing activities you're undertaking each quarter. To be frank, the more you do with the right partners, the more top of mind you'll be. And also, if you're doing marketing activities, you can kind of scale the reach. You're not having to go through them. You can get a bit more exposure. I personally think the definition of an active partnership is at least one partnership activity per quarter. Traffic sources. It's just analyzing where your traffic's coming from. So if you're putting stuff out to Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, you can get a sense of which audiences, which networks are most likely to click through and come to your site. Visits, number of times users entered your site. That's not unique. You can get a version of it which is unique for visitors and new visitors, but again, this gives you generally traffic is usually visits. Bounce rate is one that a lot of people often ask about. Who knows what bounce rate is off the top of your head? Cool. Okay. Most of you do. It's just generally it's a measure of how many people visit your site and then bugger off without doing anything. And why this is useful is it will give you a sense pretty quickly of whether the traffic you're generating is the right traffic and whether or not people are turning up by accident and they're going, this is not where I'm meant to be. Or alternatively, if they're just landing on your site and the proposition is not right. And again, the metric for this tends to be under 40% is ideal. Time on site. Again, this is another really good metric, which will tell you whether people are coming in and they're consuming multiple pages, they're looking through the place, and it tends to be an indicator of whether the people that are coming to your site are the right kind of people. And again, if you've got a high time on site but low conversion, low sign up, that's usually an indication of the site's maybe working well, but maybe there's nothing there as a next step. In other words, your call to action isn't strong enough. Sorry, something fell down over there. Page views is really useful. It'll tell you the number of users who viewed a specific page. If you are doing a content-driven strategy, combined with traffic sources, it'll also give you a sense of what topics are hitting home and maybe give you the opportunity to optimize certain pages. I'll keep going. Soft views, soft bounces and hard bounces. Soft bounces are email marketing when you send out an email marketing message and it doesn't receive it. Soft bounce is where they don't receive the message because of a temporary issue. Maybe their inbox is full or their website or their server's offline. That's particularly useful for clients. If you're sending out email marketing to a client and you get a soft bounce, maybe it gives you an indication that you should look at your other communications. They might not receive it. Hard bounce is the number of subscribers who the email address is just not valid anymore. For example, when somebody leaves a company and their email account is shut down, you'll get a hard bounce. The reason this matters is generally if you're using an email marketing tool and you're getting a lot of hard bounces, that may often flag you as being a spam marketer, which we don't want. Open rates is really important for email marketing. It's basically the percentage of subscribers who, when you send an email to them, are opening it. It should be at least 30% plus. If subscribers are not opening your emails, the most common issue you need to look at is subject lines. They're not strong enough. It's funny, not everybody, but a lot of people put a lot of effort into the emails and they don't put enough into the subject line. The subject line is probably the most important part of any email you're sending out, followed by that first line. Get those two right, and it solves a lot of problems. But a lot of people just put it as an afterthought. Unsubscribe rate, number of people who ask to be removed from your list. This is actually can be a good thing rather than a bad thing. It gives you a sense of where your content may be not hitting the mark and potentially where your list isn't aligned. But to be honest, it also gets the people who are never going to convert off your list, which, if you want to be really hard-nosed, it can save you a lot of money in terms of paying for email marketing tools. But I like it when people, opt out, because what's the point in continuing to market to someone who just isn't going to convert? Click-through rate's another really important one. I'll keep going. That's the number of subscribers who open one of your EDMs and then click on one of the links. If someone's opening your content, but they're not clicking through, then it could be an indication you need to improve your copy, or sometimes go, okay, if my call to action's on the website and they aren't clicking through the website, maybe a few email copies that are a bit more overt about your offer. Number of clicks is one I really like. Most email marketing tools will show it, but it give you an indication by individual people who is clicking most on your content. And it's interesting because every time we do the EDM, you'll go in and you'll get one or two people who are clicking on it like 10 or 12 times. And it either means they're really, really interested. In other words, they may be the people that you want to shoot out a quick, hey, would you like to work together email? Or can I share some more content with them? Or it could be that they're just bored. That's often another thing. But that's really interesting. You get a sense of that sort of thing going on. Or they're prone to procrastination and distraction. Network growth, we're now into sort of growth metrics, which is once you've got engagement, it's about making sure that the metrics that they're showing, it's teed up to making what you're doing more and more effective. Network growth is how much your professional network. Really good for platforms like LinkedIn, where the size of your network and the quality will dictate your reach most of the time. Conversions or registrations, you can also call it signups. It's how many or what percentage of visitors who hit your website are joining your mailing list. Because as you know, not everybody who visits your site is going to book a meeting. And if you're not capturing their email and you're not having the opportunity to market to them via email marketing, they're going to leave and you potentially never come back. But if you grow your list, you can create a nurture strategy. Typically, metrics for this vary between 0.5% and 1.5% of unique visitors to your site. Hence the reason digital marketing is in many cases a bit of a volume game at times. And then inquiries, for me, is anybody who is just reaching out via your contact us page or alternatively emailing you. I sort of separate this from the next one, which is prospects, which is booking an initial quick chat. Because if I'm getting a lot of inquiries and nobody is booking an initial quick chat, that may be that my website is not gearing them up to do that, or alternatively, they're missing a bit of information on the site that I should provide, which might lead to them being more likely to book the first contact call. Prospects is measuring first contact call. As you know, this for me is one of the best strategies to implement if you want to improve your chances of conversion and change the first appointment. The amount of people who progress from a quick chat to an initial meeting for me is leads. Some people also call them qualified leads. I kind of define a lead as anybody I have a first appointment with, but a qualified lead is anybody I have a first appointment with, and there was no reason why we wouldn't proceed to work together. In other words, there was something went wrong in the process that meant a perfect fit didn't work. And finally, ROI. And I put these ones in there, although they're not necessarily measured as much in the funnel. I think they're really important. Annual retention rate. I think it's a good one to work out what percentage of clients are not being retained. And that's really just looking at, okay, I have 100 clients at the beginning of the year. I lost 5 clients. I've got a 95% retention rate. Client lifetime is you would generally take your attrition rate. So if you're losing 5% of your clients a year and you have 100 client a year and you divide it by 500, your average client lifetime is 20 years. And client lifetime rates tend to be quite high in advice. I think ours is about 2.4, which is very high for coaching. Lifetime value is, again, builds on that, and it sort of analyzes if my average client stays with me for 20 years, what are my annual fees? Let's say annual fees 3,000. It means that the average, the lifetime value of a client is 3,000 times 20. So it gives you a sense of what a conversion is really worth. And what's interesting is if you look at keyword bidding for financial services and financial planning, it's one of the highest out there. And the reason being is because the lifetime value of a client is such that it enables people who are very good at this to invest a lot of money in getting click-throughs, because they know that, let's say you get 100 click-throughs, maybe it costs you, I don't know, $300 or $400 to get those 100 click-throughs. But if you just get one client off the back of that, 3,000 or 4,000 a year in year one, but also lifetime value. So again, gives you insight into why financial services marketing is so competitive online. Cost per lead, it's a really simple metric. You just take the number of leads you generated over the total marketing spend, and it gives you a solid benchmark that you can easily compare. And this is a good one too, similar cost per acquisition. You take your new revenue, total new revenue from the previous year versus total marketing spend, and it tells you what it tends to cost to generate $1 in new revenue for the business. How is that? Is that useful? Did I tell anybody anyone thing they didn't already know? Cool. Perfect. All right, let's keep going. Let's move on from that. Cool. Final thing is kind of tracking. And I'm not going to go into this in detail, but having the right tools in place to kind of track what you're doing is really vital. And I know this is an area sometimes people get hung up on. And for example, Google Analytics can be really, really confusing. But it's kind of like, if you imagine your car without the fuel gauge, it would be almost impossible to have it for any period of time, because eventually you're going to run out of fuel. Same with thermometer. You know, the first thing you do when you get sick is you pull out the thermometer, you stick it in your mouth or your ear or wherever you want to do it. And it gives you a sense, it gives you that benchmark. So there are various different options out there. Google Analytics is one of those areas. If you're using a social media tool for posting and it can link with the networks, it'll give you some reporting on various elements of these. I know our marketing platform VBout does. You can, but I mean, if you can also use a marketing tracker. For example, things like partner outreaches and marketing activities. These are things which you may need to invest some time to have maybe a monthly marketing meeting and pull this together and track it in a tracker. Pipeline is another one. Pipeline, if done really, really well, is going to give you insight to referral sources, why people referred. It'll give you minimum fee levels. It'll give you turnaround times. Again, all the best metrics in the world are not going to work if you don't either have a system for tracking them, which is where online comes into its own, and having the right metrics being tracked so you know what they are and you know how they're relevant. But if you don't necessarily have the ability to track those automatically, you're going to need to maybe track them either through, a marketing tracker of some sort. I'm happy to sort of help you develop one if need be, or alternatively, pipeline tracking can give you some real insight. But yeah, it's an absolute must. So I just want to check in. How are we doing so far? So let me know, actually, just pop it in the chat box. What areas, when it comes to tracking, is there an area that you feel you need most help with in order to make this happen? Maybe you've already got a tool in place, so you don't need any help, but maybe you're sitting there and going, actually, you know what? We don't track our website metrics, or I don't have any way of tracking. I don't really track referrals well enough, and I need to improve on that. Or it might be you don't really track social media, or you don't really track content production. If you have an area, type it in the box so I can capture it and review it later on. Andrew, tracking from end to end, understanding how this works. Fair enough. Everything then. Well, maybe we can, in a session, just go through what you've got and we'll see whether it's filling the gaps or not. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, one of the reasons we've moved to VBout is simply because it's probably got the most comprehensive dashboard system I've seen so far. And if you're going down that route, you can track everything you can use the calendar to track bookings. You can use it to track social media. So maybe we can walk through a bit of that. Simon, how about you? Is there a particular area or not? Yeah, Simon Enger.
Well, I guess because we're sort of just starting down this route, I must admit, going through that list you just did, it's quite overwhelming, actually, all the bits and pieces that go into it. So I guess that, we've got very basic tracking, as you know now. But I guess it's probably, more detail, especially around what's working and what's not once we start down this path as well.
Okay. So on that end, would it help if we try to simplify it and just make it really, really easy?
100%, of course.
Okay. So let's talk about the how. And I'm going to walk you through the second tool there, which is the metrics cheat sheet. And I've tried to make this as simple as possible. Let me just come in and share it. And you can grab yours and you can work through it right now, or we can just talk through it as we go. And I might end up turning this into a bit of a formal tool. But as it is, it's kind of one of those areas you can kind of just grab it out, write on it. And it's going to tell you specifically, if you want to achieve certain outcomes, what do you need to do? Or are you doing enough further up your funnel in order to get the outcome? Or alternatively, you can use it the other way around to sort of stock take what you're doing and identify where potentially certain benchmarks are not being hit that would enable you to get there. Does that make sense? Okay. So the metrics cheat sheet it looks like that. And it goes, as I said, it goes through each of the three funnels, all the way from output, awareness, engagement, growth, and at the bottom. So the idea behind it is you can start at the bottom and you can kind of go, okay, how many new ongoing clients do I want to have on board? And you can go, well, what's my conversion rate of ongoing clients to new clients? So before you can work back and work out how many new clients. And then you can go, well, what's my conversion rate of converting first appointments to new clients? I'll give you the number of leads you need to generate. Okay. How many people I have a first contact call with go on to our first appointment? You can work out that conversion rate there. Similarly, you can do a conversion rate to say, well, how many people haven't made an inquiry that then go to that first contact call? It'll give you a clear sense of how many inquiries you need to generate ongoing clients. But then we can work backwards up the funnel again. We can go, okay, so if we've got a certain number of client advocates on board, and I know that if I have a certain number of discussions a year with those advocates, I'm going to generate a certain number of discussions. And if I know that of those discussions I have, a certain percentage will lead to a referral. That's you can track how many referrals. Of those referrals that are made, how many actually get introduced. That'll give you a sense of the amount of referrals you get. Does that make sense? Cool. Similarly, I'll do the digital last. You can go, okay, well, how many active partnerships do I have? And if I have active partnerships, how often am I doing some sort of marketing activity, which will give you a sense of how many marketing activities you're undertaking? You can make an estimate, or either you know the number of introductions that come out of those activities, or you can make a set of benchmarks to try and hit. And that'll give you a sense of how many introductions you're going to get from your active partnerships. And you can start to see where these two come together. And similarly with digital, you can, and this is where it gets a bit more complicated, you can analyze your monthly traffic. You can get a sense of what percentage of that traffic is going to convert to an initial appointment, which might be, for most people, it's going to be low. For others, it might be higher. You can also get a sense of how many of them are going to sign up for your list. You'll get a sense of your list size growth and how big it is now. You can define how many times you're communicating the list, what the open rate is, how many people are viewing your EDM every year, what the click-through rate, which will give you a sense of the total number of content reviews over the course of a 12-month period, how many of them will convert to actually an appointment, which will give you the total leads. I'll walk through an example because I think it'll be easier. This example I've created is what I call the 50 great leads sample. So you can see right in the middle here, I've defined, okay, I've got a business and I want to generate over the course of the next 12 months, 50 leads. Of those 50 leads, 80% of those are going to go become new clients. This is first appointment. And of those who I meet become new clients, 100% are going to become ongoing because that's my model. So in other words, as a result of those 50 great leads, I'm going to generate 40 ongoing clients. Working backwards, I know that my first contact call success rate is about 83%. In other words, if I have a 15-minute phone call, 83% of people I speak to, I'm going to want to progress to the first appointment, which means I need to have 60, and this isn't just a small business, this is a bigger business. We need to have 60 first contact calls. Of those 60 first contact calls and the inquiries that come through, which include that 60% of them we're going to have a 15-minute contact with, which means my target is 100 inquiries over the next 12 months. Does that make sense? Okay. To that end, I've analyzed my referrals. And I've got 30 people in our broader client base who are advocates who have either referred in the past or are open to referring. Myself and the team, we're going to have 2 discussions every year with each advocate, which means over the course of a 12-month period, we're going to have 60 referral discussions. We think that as a result of those 60 referral discussions, 50% of them will result in at least one referral. Some of them might result in 2, but we're going to go 50%, which means if we have 60 referral discussions, we believe as a result of our discussions, we're going to get 30 referrals. Some people are going to have the referral, they're going to be referred, but let's say they never reach out for whatever reason. So we'll say 80% of them reach out, which means as a result of those 60 referral discussions that we have with the 30 advocates we've identified, we're going to get 24 referrals. So out of that 100, we've already knocked off 24. Does that make sense? And we can measure that. We can see whether the numbers are right. We can go, are we generating 50%? Are we generating more? But we've got metrics that we can measure what we need to do, and we can also start to measure whether or not our assumptions are correct about those sort of things. Does that make sense so far? Yeah, Simon, B, I know you're there in the background.
Yeah, all good.
Cool. Again, let's apply the same thing to partners. I'll come to digital last. Let's say as a business we have 4 active partners. And of those partners, we are doing 3 marketing activities a year with each of them. So every 4 months, we do at least 1 marketing activity. Now, that might be a sit down with their team and do a training session. It might be sitting down as advisor and accountant, or maybe it's 3 people and we're sitting down and we're comparing clients. I think I should introduce you to this client. In other words, you're identifying a hit list, or it could be doing a podcast together. It could be doing a video series. It could be sharing content. But I think as a result, we're going to do 3 activities, and that means a total every year I'm doing 12 partner activities, and that could be part of your proposal. I think that out of that, the average number of introductions that are going to come off referrals over the next 4 months as a result of engaging with those partners is going to be 3.7, which means I'm going to get over the course of a 12-month period 44. My metric to measure is 44 introductions. Does that make sense? So again, I'm aware. I know I've got 4 partners. This is my activity metric. That gives me a total. And these are some of the assumptions I'm making that I need to measure about whether the introduction is going to be higher, lower, and ultimately whether the result comes at the end. The final piece in the puzzle is the digital. And there are so many different ways to so many metrics. But I think if you're looking for a simple way to measure this, what is your monthly website traffic? So let's say this business is generating 1,000 visits a month. I personally think the conversion for most businesses, Andrew, you might be different. I don't know what your rate is. It tends to be pretty low. For these guys, maybe it's 0.05% on a 1,000 hits. Bearing in mind, a lot of these hits are going to be maybe bots or all sorts of stuff. So
is that total traffic or just new traffic?
that would be total traffic.
Yeah.
So 0.05, I think that's 1% would be 10. So let's say that's, I think it's, is it 2? So it's 2 from that. But again, my personal view is when it comes to digital, the primary, and unless you've sort of hit on keyword analysis and you're doing really, really well, for most businesses I work with, their goal is not going to be to convert people from a visit. And often the leads that come through when they're being brought in from paid advertising or keyword search, there's a lot of filtering that needs to happen anyway. A lot of people are just not going to be appropriate because they don't necessarily want what you're offering. But let's say of that monthly traffic, 1% of them are signing up to be part of your list. They're downloading a lead magnet or they're subscribing, which means every month your list is growing by 10. Bang, bang, bang. That's your metric. That's whether you'll identify whether or not you're growing the list as you should. The money's in the list. That's one of the sayings that a lot of marketers say. Your list size is 1,200. It'll grow as time goes on. But let's say you publish 26 EDMs a year. And of those EDMs, you get a 30% open rate, which means that it's 26 times 1,200 times 30%, which means every year, 9,360 views, individual views. Some of them are viewing it twice. People are looking at your content, opening your email and reading it. You with me so far? Still with me? Okay. Of those, people who read, our benchmark is about 10%. So 10% of your total people you send it out to will open it, which if it's 10% of the total, then it's a third of the 30% who opened it. Does that make sense? So 33% of these people who open your email are clicking through, which means at any point in time over the course of 12 months, you've got around 3,000 people who are clicking through to your blog or your video blog and they're consuming it. And again, we apply the same conversion rate. 1% of them decide, you know what, I'm ready to book an appointment, which means we've got 31, 32, 33 leads coming through from that particular channel. You with me so far? So this particular structure, you've got a whole bunch of stuff to measure. You've got 24 leads coming in for referrals. You've got 33 leads coming in from digital. You've got 44 coming into introduction. That's how you get your 100, which eventually works into your 50 great leads, which works into your 40 ongoing clients. You with me on that one? Is that helping or is it just blowing? Is it not helping at all? Cool. Shall I give you another example? Here's an example of a business that's got no partners and they're just starting out digital. Okay. Give you a sense of how they plan. So they look at it and they're coming at it from the top down. They're not bothering with the metric. They're just going, okay, let's work out what's reasonable. So they've got no partners. So we can park the partner thing altogether. They just haven't gone down that route. But let's say they go through and they say, okay, referrals are really strong for us. Let's identify who has referred in the past. They identify they've got 15 advocates, people in their client base. And they go, okay, we're gonna approach the same 2 discussions a year that prime people with referrals. That's 30 discussions. We'll apply that 50% referral rate, potentially 15 referrals, 80%, which means if you identify your 15 advocates and you have these discussions, the target you're tracking against is 12 total referrals that will come through. You with me? Let's say they get stuck in a digital. They identify their monthly traffic is 150, which means their inquiry rate is low. That explains a lot. They've got 1% sign-up rate. So their goal for the initial part is just to get a couple of 3 signups every 2 months. Their list size is 150. It'll slowly grow. They're sending out 12 EDMs. They're not going nuts. 30% open rate, which means 540 views a year. Again, click-throughs, 10%, which means 30% of the total. The click-through, this means 178 people are clicking through and reading it. We'll give them a 2% conversion rate because we think their list is probably going to be a bit engaged, which means over the course of time, based on those metrics, they're going to generate between 3 and 4 leads from digital. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can I just ask a question, Stu?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're saying here, the way that, if I understand this correctly, is that you're generating content somewhere, Facebook, blog post, whatever, to get people to go to the website. Then when they're in the website, to sign up on a list, and then from the list, direct market them. Is that kind of like the flow of the marketing funnel, if you like?
My primary goal, whenever I'm marketing social media, is to get people to visit my site.
Yeah, and sign up on a list.
Yeah,
because we get stacks of people visit the site, but I don't necessarily have people signing up to a list as such that they would either just contact us. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not funneling them. I'm not focusing on having people sign up to engage, but maybe we should be.
The reason being is when people are on social media, it's incredibly noisy. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I would still argue that most people are not thinking about their financial future when they're on Facebook. They're thinking about cat videos or whatever. And so when you get them onto your website, for me, the job of social media is done. I would rather have one email than 100 likes. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And when they hit the site, I'm giving them high value content, but I'm going, by the way, there's this guide you can download. And usually the guide is tied to a topic that is really valuable. The current one we use is advisor pricing guide, because advice pricing is such a hot topic, and it always is. It's a bit of a workhorse. I've got lead magnets we developed that you can white label. One is called the 6-step guide to a happy, healthy, wealthy retirement. And there's another one called the 20% spending system. And it's about making a promise to say, hey, you visit our site. Here's the content. By the way, look at this guide we created. Or it can be a whole bunch of stuff, but it's on the assumption
to do something to encourage them to add their name to a list.
Because most people aren't going to book an appointment, particularly if it's their first time meeting you. The sales cycle for advice is very different from. So if let's say they come on and they go, oh, you know what, this guy or girl looks great. You know what, I might come back to this later. The chances of them coming back are small. So, but if they go, you know what, I'm going to grab that guide and I'll come back later. If they don't come back, you've got their email. You can start the nurture. And that's where I always focus on, like a lot of marketers they say the money is in the list. People say email is dead. Email is not dead. Yeah. It is the primary method of communication globally. And when you have someone's email address, you can, like you can go into VBAT, I can see people visiting the site. I can see what they've opened. I can see what they're reading. I can see so much data, and I can do automations off the back of it. But if they're just visiting the site or they're on social media, I don't have that information.
No, so we're not getting the people signing up, and that's only because I'm not asking for it.
It's easy to do. I mean, we can fix that very quickly. I mean, we've spoken about this a lot, Simon. It's like, when they're on the list, everything changes, and it's relatively easy to do. And it still offer people the opportunity of engaging, because there's some people who are going to arrive and they go, I'm ready. But let's be honest, if they're arriving ready, it's not your marketing that's done it. They were already in that mindset. You just met them in the right place. But it's the people who aren't quite ready or don't quite know you or don't understand what it's all about. Those are the people we want to give them something that they do value and they're ready to download and make a decision, and bang, the conversation begins. Because otherwise it becomes really, really hard to measure traffic and inquiry rate. It's going to give you a really low conversion, and it's not going to tell you what you need to know, which is where are people opening? Which topics are they not opening? Where are people clicking through? And then, one of the things we do is we install a tool called True Conversion on people's websites, which actually records sessions. Yeah. So you can go in and go, you get the idea? Does that help?
Yeah. So it does. And then, then I guess there's a separate, there's a specific marketing technique, if you like, for then on the email side. Because at the moment with my list, what I do is just put in, just an intro to like 4 blog pieces that I've got on the website and send that out. So it's kind of like, it's that's probably feels like now I'm going around in circles.
You should, really
I'm
good.
not asking a question.
Yeah, you're not. There's always got to be a call to action. It's the thing that moves people. And I think, for example, a lot of the content that we put out to our blogs, we just reutilize it on social media. So people are coming off the list, but they're also coming off social media. So we're not working twice as hard. We're actually reutilize the same content. And sometimes we're tweaking the content. Like, for example, there's a piece I put out to you guys around peer group engagement. And I had about 3 people I shared it with said, can you put this out to the blog? Because it's really important. Rachel actually said, I really want to share this with my practices. So we'll reutilize it. I'm a big believer in don't reinvent the wheel. Utilize content that works. Utilize the content that you're producing for different audiences and just tweak the way you position it.
Yep.
Cool. There's another funnel here, which is, I'll run through it really, really quickly. This is for a business that doesn't do any digital. They're just all partners and referrals. And again, they've got 10 advocates, 2 discussions. That's 20, 2 discussions a year, 20 discussions total, 50% referral rate, which means they're getting 10 referrals, 100% of referral being introduced. Bang, there's their 10 referrals. That's the target to work on. There's nothing going on in the digital space, in theory. Partners, they've got 5. They're really proactive. 3 activities a year. That gives them total of 15. They reckon there's 2 introductions per activity. That's 30 introductions a year. That's giving them 40 inquiries, 80% conversion rate. Again, it leads down to 32 leads. It doesn't have to be about digital. You can do it just in those 2 funnels. But again, the key to this is I know what I want to achieve. I know what I'm starting with, and I'm working through the process of giving myself some metrics so I can work out whether what I'm doing is working, whether I've got the right partners, whether I'm targeting the right people, and ultimately where the chain is broken, which is kind of, I mean, we've had this discussion, Andrew, and you've probably gone, oh, I could probably do something here. And the piece that I always say is, like, if you're doing no referrals and no only referrals and partnerships, and you've got a website, there's a good chance the website or the digital presence involved at some point. Cool. How's this been? Has it been useful? Simon, I know this is a big area for us in the coming years. Hopefully this has made it simpler and not more complex.
Well,
So
no, it's been good. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot to it. So, it'll be interesting.
There is a lot to it. And I'm trying not to overcome. I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible, but it's kind of that barrier between it. There's a lot, and it's filtering out the stuff that isn't as important to know, but also recognizing that there are ways of tracking certain things and tracking the flow through both funnels and understanding the flow and what influences what and how it all fits together. It's that's the key to this. And as I said at the beginning, the reason Brendan Bouchard can spend $80,000 a month on his Facebook campaign is because he knows he targets that audience, he spends the money, the audience see the ad, a certain percentage click on the ad. Of those percentage who click the ad, they book the call. Of the percentage who book the call, his sales team, bang, he does the numbers. It's like, oh, we're making 360,000, boom, spend more. And that's how they scale up. Generally, if you paid advertising, used to be easier to do. It's harder now, but you just generally start $5 a day, $5 a day, $10 a day, and then you just build it up until you get to 80,000. So from here, for me, if I was going to implement this, it's really just about asking some questions. And if you're not, come back to me. Are you clear on specifically what you want to track? In other words, do you know what you're aiming to do? Do you know what your goals are? Do you know what the inputs are? Do you know how you're going to track it? If it's going to be a pipeline thing or you need some help with analytics, some of that tracking might be stuff that needs to happen regularly. You might need to sit down as a team to update the pipeline or run through the marketing, or certain people might need to update certain things, or you might need to, review the numbers on a regular basis. What is that process for reviewing it? And most importantly, what help do you need, if any, to make this happen? So let me just finish off with one more thing. I think Simon is still with us. Let me know and put as many as you want in here. What do you need help with? Because ultimately, whatever you tell me you need help with, I will either help you personally, or if it's a consistent thing, I'll go out there and I'll find the best resources, find the best people to come in and explain it, or alternatively, I'll cover it at a drop in. So what do you, and put it in the chat box so we've got a record of it and we can go back and review it. What do you need help with? As many as you like. What do you need help with when it comes to this stuff? Andrew, I'm guessing lead magnets would be one of yours. Getting the website list set up, sign up, better email marketing. That's a direct message, by the way. Andrew, I think you got to put that to everyone. Good lead magnets. Love it. Referral tracking, conversations had from which, that's a pipeline. Absolutely pipeline. Good lead, getting the web list signups, better email marketing. That's really, we can walk through some of that when we next meet. But to be honest, it's if you visit our site, I know we're getting it redone. You'll notice there's a subscribe button at the top. There's a lead magnet download thing. You go down the page. There's 3 ways to sign up. It's just every single time someone's on your site, even on the blog page, give them a path to join the list or book the appointment. Conversion, cool. Yeah. Are you tracking it currently, Simon?
Nah, we're not really tracking much at all.
Okay. So maybe we need to have a conversation about your technology and what you're using. Because have you set up any goals? You guys use ActiveCampaign or HubSpot?
Yeah, we're using ActiveCampaign. I actually just did a workshop with them in Melbourne Wednesday. But we're not really tracking too much because we're only getting like maybe 1 hit here and 2 hits there. So it's like, well, what's the point? Are
you? I imagine you're getting more than that, are you?
Well, we get a lot of our people signing up purely because of Calendly. That's where, like, I guess 95% of our people signing up to the website, signing up to our mailing list come from. We get maybe a handful of lead magnet hits every year, and a lot of them are actually spammy. But then, tracking if our actual EDMs are working and then they're actually going to the website and doing something after that is hard to convert.
The bit we might need to have a talk about, because I know you guys have, there's always been discussion about marketing and ROI. Like, the most important thing for me is you got a dashboard. Like, if I want to know where your data sets are, that is going to tell you sort of, what your pages are, where the traffic's coming from, what the websites did month on month. Even down to goals conversion. Like,
it's pretty. I do get about 200 hits a month to the website, and I actually have noticed drop-offs when we don't post articles and post onto social media and stuff. It actually, doing the work actually does help. I think it's once they're onto the website, how do we convert them to actually download? And then once we've downloaded got their email address, how do we then convert them to a lead?
So one thing I think would be, maybe we should talk about a little bit, is you can set up, where is it, goals? Where is it? Social goals. So you can tell the system, for example, to analyze, here we go, visits lead magnets. So this one is actually tracking when anybody visits Aldere and then they go to the pricing guide. It'll go, oh, that was a goal achieved.
Okay.
Similarly, you would want to set something up so where anybody visits the website and then visits the booking page and books an appointment, because an ActiveCampaign should be able to do this, because it can analyze your site and go, okay, the behavior I'm looking for is someone visits the homepage, goes to the lead magnet download page, and then fills in the form. And it'll go 1 tick, and you'll be able to go, okay, last month, how many people achieved that goal? And if you have 200 visitors, and over the course of that month, you had 5 people who achieved that goal of downloading a lead magnet, that's a 2.5% hit rate, which is great. That's a really good, which would indicate.
Yeah, I get notifications when people download the lead magnet. So I kind of, like, off the top of my head, I can go, hey, 1 lead magnet every 2 months, 200 people. So I can kind of convert that way.
Yeah, but do you want to set it up so you don't have to, because the data's there, you just need to set it up.
Well, I need to make sure people actually, actually start to download those lead magnets. Like, are they in the right spot? Are they the right things? At the moment, the one we've got, I think, is old. It's the end of year 1, and I've got to change it. So we need another good one. We need an all year round one, I think, too. That when that's like the advisor pricing guide. To be honest, like, if you've got a workhorse, you just stick with the workhorse. Have we guys set you up with True Conversion? I use that old one of yours, the Inspectlet, at the moment, but I'll convert to True Conversion at some point. Okay. So you get across, because as you can see, you'll get data on it, but this one you can jump in. It's active, and it can get really interesting. You go in and go, okay, here's somebody from the US, 18 seconds. That's not really very right. I get a lot of bots and force. You get your sense. So this is somebody who's obviously come in on the strategic decisions. And actually, one of the good things I have used this for Inspectlet is a lot of people come to our team page. So now I'm thinking in the back of my head, our team members pages that people go to much search them. But then we need to do the flow where they're actually going from the team page to the actual service page. So that's something in the back of my head. And that's why I'm doing the website update as well at the moment. We're actually missing a lot of internal links on our website, I think. Okay. All right. But again, like, if you get this information in, there's 2 sides. One's the metrics, and then there's you go in and you go, okay, what are people actually doing? Yeah. And this will give you a real sense of, why are people, for example, straight away, are people coming straight into the team page? In which case it could be an SEO issue. It could be, it's picking up on it, or alternatively, people are coming into the blog and they're not signing up for the lead magnet or whatever it might be. Then you can get a sense of what they're doing and where they're going and why they're not. So yeah, I know you're in the middle of stuff, but if you're going down that route of trying to understand how to get more people accessing the lead magnet, tracking those goals is one thing, but also diving in and going, okay, could it be a positioning issue? Yeah. Could it be that they're seeing it, it's there in front of them, but they're not using it, which could be a topic's wrong, or it could alternatively be that the copy for the actual lead magnet isn't great. Yeah, something to work on. Yeah, it's all optimization, isn't it? Yep. Cool. Is there anything else anybody wants to cover? Any other questions? No? Andrew just gave a big. Actually,
it's just like it's everything.
So one thing I was going to suggest is, and I think we talked about this at one point, is that having your website and your digital marketing out there for the things that you can't really track. So how much use is it for, say, hey, if someone refers a client, that client's going to go to your website, look at the thing, and then they might just jump on and book a meeting or give you a phone call, but you're missing that part of the tracking. And it's something you just never get or understand. Sorry, go on.
I'll answer the question straight off the bat. That's where the pipeline tracking comes in. And I like one of the first questions in the first contact call is, so what's going on in your world that made this a conversation, and how did we come to connect with each other? And I was, why me and why now? And the why me question is, well, I was referred through by so-and-so. And as soon as I get off the call, I'll record my audio file note and go, okay, this is a file note for my conversation with Simon B. We had a conversation. He came through from blah, 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 blah. And then we'll update the pipeline tracker to identify that. So no, you're not. There are certain metrics you're never going to be able to track, but you can pick them up if you ask the right conversations, if you ask the right questions, and then you're tracking it by again either a pipeline tracker which tracks anything that's below the inquiry level, or a marketing tracker which tracks, how many active marketing activities we're doing with partners, how much content we're putting out, that sort of stuff.
So that's probably a process thing too. So we got to get the team to go, hey, you know what? You're having a conversation at this point in time, and that's that question you're asking, and then you are writing it down for us to keep on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of pipeline sessions with businesses when we're in growth mode, also when we're doing pricing. And to be honest, sometimes having those conversations, particularly when you've got a business that they don't necessarily involve with each other's business on a day-to-day, or you've got a business where you've got differing levels of advisor capability, talking about this client's come in, where do they come from, how did you price it, how do you approach it? It can actually be a learning and development piece as well, but you've got to set aside some time in the diary to sit down and do it together.
Have surveys, would they be is there any maybe? Yeah.
You could in your Calendly page, you can have a text field. It's like, where you referred? Did you find us online, or were you sent through by another business? In which case, who sent you? You can totally do that.
That might be.
Yeah, we do that. We do that on Calendly. So if people are booking, we've got half a dozen boxes. How did you hear about us? But most people on that just tick the web page, which, as I said before, I don't know whether someone said, you should go and see these guys. Then they go to the website, then they click on book a meeting. Then when they're booking it, they click web, when in actual fact they've been referred.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't think it's an exact science, because there's probably gaps in it. But
I changed the wording to web to social media.
Yeah, well, I'm not 100% sure what it says even, but probably, I'll check it.
Or Google search, you could put Google search in there, social media. The other alternative is sometimes it can be better to ask for that information after you've had a discussion.
Yeah.
Because then you've added value and you kind of move forward. Because let's be really honest, sometimes clients are more likely to give you more information. Like, if you've got 12 questions, some clients are not going to answer it because they're just like, they're not at that point where they're going to give you that level of information, but I'd sort of test it. But yeah, the easy answer to your question, Simon, is that stuff you need to sort of collect in a less, it's not, you can't automate some of it.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else, gents? All right. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've all got something fun planned for the weekend.
Yeah, doing digital marketing.
Well, give us a shout, because I've been down a lot of dead ends in my life, and I've worked out. Yeah, I'm
finishing that SEO course.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I might get. You know what I'm going to do, Simon? You and I can jump on a bit of a webinar. Maybe you can do. Maybe the best way to learn something is to teach it. So maybe we can teach it.
Great. I'll finish. I'm only 50% through yet.
We'll teach the 50% you do know. There you go. Cool. Well, I'm doing a Japanese themed dinner here at the office tomorrow, which should be fun. But don't know what we're cooking yet, but we'll work it out. All right, I'm well over time. I'll let you go. Thanks for joining me. If you've got any questions, shoot them through. The recording will be available on the website in the next couple of days. Jen, thank you very much for manning the battle stations in the background.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
There we have it, another episode of the Finnovator done and dusted. And as I sit here recording this, a small grey stuffy is staring at me expectantly. because the rain has just stopped outside and no doubt she wants to go for a little bit of a walk. So I'll keep it really short. If you're not a member of our success community, practice success community at success.audere.com.au, that's audere.com.au, please jump in and join us. Not only do you get access to the entire back catalogue of these masterclasses, but in addition, there's a free module in there called the Practice Success course. And it's made up of 4 training videos with supporting tools. And one of those is value proposition. And no matter where you go with marketing, one of the cornerstones is always going to be understanding who your clients are, building a client avatar, and then creating a proposition that is likely to encourage them to want to engage with you. It's the basis of content marketing. It's the basis of referral marketing. It's the basis of partnership marketing. It's definitely the basis of digital marketing. And if you'd like to get access to it, I still think the methodology that we built for that, which is we've been honing over the last 6 or 7 years, is still some of the best methods to get really clear on who you want to work with, what is going to bring them in, and be able to explain to people, given various different mediums, why they should work with you. I would love to see you in the community. I'd love to see you be part of it. But in the meantime, I hope you have a great week and stay tuned for the next episode of The Finnovator.